right, Kim, so let's reflect a little bit on your lesson.
Okay.
And were you pleased with the lesson? How do you think it went?
There were good parts, I watched it myself. There were some positives and then there were some negatives. I looked down when the lesson was almost over and realized I'd left out my whole thing on my word work. And I'm sure just because I was nervous, even though I know you're the one they're watching, it still made me nervous. So I left out this whole thing about, I picked a lot of words that had the fully in it. And it would have liked to have done that work.
And their word work portion versus.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I kept thinking, wow, we have so much time to read. And then, like I said, I looked down when it was almost over and I was like, well, that's because I didn't do the word work I had planned.
That probably gave you all that extra time.
There you have that. And then yesterday, one of the two students was gone. So I'm still planning when they're both here, I'm gonna go over that.
So do you feel you'll go over some of those words that you front-loaded? Like you front-loaded the word joyfully, genius,
Right.
doom. Do you feel like those are the words, or are you shifting your focus to something different besides those words?
Well, I actually, what I wrote up and what I had intended was the joyfully, just because that's a word that can be you can take apart. And I feel like because, they've made this jump from 18 to 20, which is a big jump, because they've made this jump, they really are gonna have to start relying on being able to take words apart, understanding what, looking at, okay, so what this means this means this, so together, it must mean this, those kind of things. So I do think I'm gonna work on that.
So you feel like they're, instead of just looking at word parts like CR together,
Right.
just those meanings and how it can change the meaning of a root word.
Right,
So kind of helping them on that.
you bet.
So
Yeah, they really are gonna need to have that arsenal in their packet to be successful at this level. And I was a little bit surprised, I expected it to be hard for them. It was a little harder than I thought, but, as their teacher, I know that they have got that level 18, they have the strategies and the things they need to be successful there. So I have to push them, this is where they got to go.
Do you feel like looking back at your lesson, some of those words that you front-loaded here, not in your word work that you were
Right.
planning on doing, but some of those words that you front-loaded here, like genius, joyfully, and doom, do you feel there's a difference in those words that are maybe one that is a teachable one that you could teach and have them use certain parts to kind of, so that they can use those parts later on when they come to a word, versus those words that they have to have for comprehension, like genius?
Right.
They needed that background on that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely feel like that I need to move into more, teaching more like, those prefixes, teaching those meanings of those things so that
Right.
they can look at a word and get an idea right away what they're, oh, that's the word miss, what is it, for
Yeah.
misunderstanding, or that's the word, what does that mean? Oh, I know what it,
And
Yeah,
how
I
it
think I need to
changes.
work on teaching that, I do.
What kind of a plan do you have that you might be able to get them? Because if you're thinking, like I was looking at in apprenticeship and literacy, I was looking at page 115.
115?
For transfer. So if
Okay.
you're thinking about how that, you need that task of when you're teaching them during that word work part to be very similar to what you're expecting them to do independently. So just look at some of these,
Yeah.
for those
Yeah, I see.
influences. So you
Right,
want your
right.
model to be similar to what you're expecting them to do independently or instructional when you're
Right,
teaching
right,
with them.
right.
So what kinds of things do you think, teaching-wise, modeling that you might do, prompts that you might say? Let's come up with some of those that
Okay.
could help you as you start to look at these word parts more.
Right. Well, I think the first thing is gonna be, not just the modeling, but the teaching of the word, of the word part meanings, so that they do understand what those mean. And I think they're both very capable. And I think that they will, with some of that, with that teaching and that modeling, they'll get it. They're very good about, once they know something, they know it. It's
So
known
you're
in
seeing
all
that
ways.
transfer from.
That, you bet,
You would.
you bet.
So have you thought about possibly, you know, you could have some sentence, you know, the shorter cut out, and then do like, if it was joyfully,
Right,
you could have them, cut the different parts.
Right.
So that they could see it.
Right.
And then talk about what each part means, you know, that could be part of that
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
part. And, you know, what do you think about chart maybe, so that you can revisit, okay, remember the full means full of, or,
Right.
you know, I'm trying to think of
Right.
another one, Lee means, you know, it's-
Yes,
and
yeah.
So,
but I think, especially, you know, like after listening to them both,
mhm,
that they're gonna have to have additional tools.
mhm,
And I mean, if they were able to do it without that, they wouldn't be in here.
right, yeah,
And I think they're gonna definitely need that. And I don't think any child's would not benefit from knowing, you know, looking at words and their parts
right.
and what some of those mean immediately,
Mhm.
you know? So,
So maybe, type, I was thinking of a nonverbal scaffold, so if you started with some words and then you made that chart,
right,
having it either here so
Right.
that they can refer to it, or, you know, even if you took a picture of it then and taped it here so that they can see that to
Right.
help them,
right.
remember, or put it in their notebook or one of those things.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I do have them, they have some things in their cubby box to help them with, especially with writing.
mhm,
So, I think probably us working together as a team
mhm.
and doing an anchor, you know, doing a chart, and then me shrinking it down and they can have it in their box would be a great asset for them, you
Just
know,
for
as,
that, to revisit that
we
later
can do
on.
that, yeah, very, probably very frequently.
So as you choose your words that you want to start with, you know,
Right.
those word parts, if you look at page 101, with those transitional level, I
Right.
think they're at 28, is that right?
They're at what?
At level 28,
No, they're at 20.
20, I'm sorry. So still at that
Yeah, that's still in here.
transitional, but if you look, kind of these bullets down here,
Yeah.
you know, like some that you
Well,
can
there's-
choose.
And I revisited this just a day or two ago,
Mhm.
you know, but, you know, it talks about builds and reads base words and adds endings and it said forms generalizations about words, read word with fluency, but also, you know, it talked about, having, you know, knowing what the base of a word, you know, the
Mhm.
basis of the words and things like that, so, and I don't know that they, understand what a base word
Mhm.
is. That, you know, you have this base and then you're gonna, you know, you can add here, you can add here, you can add both
Mhm.
to make a different word,
Right,
you know,
to change that
so
meaning.
I think that that's something that I need to really start with them,
Mhm.
and just explaining, you know, start with what is your base word and then
Mhm.
how can we change that word to mean
Right.
this, or, you know, so.
And then really remembering to build on their known, so if they know a word, that you can just, some of these like add, to begin with, add
Right.
ed or
Right.
es.
To make it,
to-
yeah, to make it easier and then continue to add with our, yeah.
Yeah, to then
Yes.
go into some of these other ones, makes new words by adding common prefixes.
Right,
And suffixes, so, you know,
Right.
here's some great ones to begin with after you do
I
that
see,
other
yeah,
un,
yeah.
re, miss, full, which you had
Full.
already done,
yeah,
so.
yeah,
So,
exactly,
do you feel like your thoughts would be, you know, instead of just thinking about that transfer and how we're not teaching the word in the book, we're
Right.
teaching skills and strategies on
Right.
how to use those word parts to help them figure it out, not only that word, but
But-
now moving on to, oh, I'm gonna use that word to help me understand that when there's a miss in front of it, it totally changes the word,
right.
the word meaning,
And I need to do a much better job of, you know, I feel like I do a really good job of getting them prepared to read whatever I've given them, but but I'm not gonna be able to, I'm not gonna be the one giving them and loading it up. They're gonna have to do that on their own.
Right.
And so, yes, I think this is definitely a direction that I need to take with them, and probably with all my students. I think I need to do a better job of teaching strategies that will help with in the room and out of the room.
Right, and that transfer,
Yeah,
which
you
is
betcha.
huge, so.
You betcha.
So it sounds like you have a plan for those, especially that word work.
Yes.
And then, be thinking too about how, that would be your focus. So, your
Right.
word work focus, and then, where it's the problem solving strategy, that same thing, it's coming to that word, using those word parts, not just to decode, but to really think about that meaning
Right.
and how it helps me as a reader to understand the story
You bet.
in that sentence.
Yep.
And then, you can also do that after with the reflection of that
Right.
strategy used. So just, that focus is that main thing
Right,
at
right.
the top, so.
Well, and I, although I would have had some more word work, I don't know that it would have been as in depth as it needed to be for this, so, I definitely need to really be looking at that.
So you feel like maybe this coaching cycle has helped to go back into the books maybe and
Definitely.
get some, because you had already looked at their data to thinking, okay, this is what they need to do, but
This is where we need to go.
Mhm.
I just have to give them the tools to be successful at where we are.
Right.
So, and, we'll see how it goes. I just know this is where they need to be.
Right, and
Yeah.
really, as they're moving on as that more sophisticated reader, like reading
Right.
for that meaning, it's not, just
Right.
really looking at those parts. So we can say page 101 would be a great resource in interventions at work. And then the other one was page 115.
Yep, I
in
wrote that
apprenticeship.
down. I got that for this right here.
Because I think that would be important too, to really think about that transfer, because we have to think about, okay, my model has to be explicit enough and close enough to what they're going to be doing here in order for that transfer to take
Yes.
place.
And I really feel like as a teacher, that's my weakest point, is thinking about the transferring from, just from my little group and my little stuff to taking it back with them, So, I need to be doing scaffolding that's gonna help them be successful in all areas, as opposed to just with my reading.
And maybe that just that one book. So if you'd gotten to like that word joyfully in this book, like
Right.
prompting them, instead of giving them the definition, I'm trying to
Right.
find what page it was on, but
Right here.
instead of giving them the definition, you could say to them, well, look for parts and that will help you. Do you know some parts? Well, they could find joy. Okay,
Right.
well, what does that mean? Well, what means, and if you had that chart here, well, what does that full mean?
Yes.
It means you're full of joy. Now talk about the lead, so that
Right.
you're going up and down that scale of help too, not
Right.
jumping in and just saying, oh, joyfully means this,
This
you
means
know.
this, right.
Yeah, so.
Let's figure it, let's figure it out together, what does that mean? Yeah, you look for your parts, then
Yeah.
let's go from there.
Yeah, and instead of just looking for parts to just solve that
Yeah.
word, looking for parts to get the meaning of that.
Right,
Because that's
right.
what we do as readers all the time.
Yeah.
Is look for those parts.
And I really think that, that chart, us working on that chart together, once they're, like I said, they'll catch on really fast.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
And that'll help them tremendously, so.
And think about that success and their confidence then when they're reading in the classroom. Because
Right.
that's that part of transfer too, if you can remind them, hey, reflections of strategy used, well, hey, in the classroom, here's what you can do to help yourself too. If your
Right.
teacher's not available and you're independently reading, this is what you can do to help yourself. So
Yes.
that's that transfer as
Yes.
well.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
Last
Remind myself
thoughts?
of that, so. All right, anything else you think of?
No, I think that's a great, focus for
Oh, I do
start on,
too.
and then we can revisit later after you have a few more lessons with them and kind of
Yes,
see
I
where
agree.
they are.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Awesome. Well,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.